In this video, I will give you an introduction to SPSS. Now, I'll talk about what SPSS is, what you need to know when using SPSS, and what SPSS is used for. Now, SPSS stands for Statistical Package for Social Sciences. And as the name suggests, it is a statistical package or a statistical software. And it is mainly used for social sciences. But yes, even in other fields, SPSS can be used. Now, SPSS helps you to analyze and manipulate and also present the data that you have. And basically, it does this in three ways. First, SPSS helps you to describe the data that you have. Second, SPSS helps you to examine the relationships among the variables in your dataset. And third, SPSS helps you to compare groups of data that you have. Now, SPSS has two main windows. There is the output viewer and there is also the data editor. The output viewer is what comes out when you have done an analysis of your data and then the results come out. So on the output viewer, that is where your results come out. And then the data editor is what you see when you first open SPSS. So what you are seeing here on the screen is known as the data editor. Now the data editor has two parts. There is the variable view and the data view. So what you are seeing here is the data view part of the data editor. What you are seeing here is the data view. And this is where you have the variables. Here, as you can see on top, it's written var, var, var. It means that these are variables. So on the data view, the columns on the data view, they represent a variable. Each column represents individual variables. And then each row represents individual data points in those variables. The data points in your variables, they are in the rows, or they represent each case in that variable. And then now let's go to the variable view. Now on the variable view, the rows, they represent each variable. And then the columns, they represent the properties of each of those variables. So on the data view, each column represents a variable. And then each row represents individual cases in that variable. And then in the variable view, each column represents the property of that variable. And then each row represents the variable. Now let me talk about these properties. So you have the name, you have the type, the width, the decimals, the label, the values, missing, columns, align, and measure, and then the row. So if you talk about the name, this is just the variable name. This is just the variable name. Now, there are three things that you need to know when entering the variable name. First, when you enter a variable name, the first character in that variable name should not be a number. So for example, if I write country, and then I press enter, what's going to happen is that the variable, I've been told here, the variable name contains an illegal first character. So the first character should not be a number. And then you should not include special characters when writing the variable name. You should not include special characters. And also when writing the variable name, do not put spaces. For example, if I write country space wide, enter, what's going to happen? The variable name contains an illegal character. So again, do not put spaces, do not include special characters. I think it's better when you write in the variable name, just write in letters. That way SPSS is going to recognize it. Don't put special characters, don't put spaces, and the first character should not be a number. Now, what about the type? The type just represents the type of variable that you are going to have. Is it going to be a numeric variable? Is it going to be comma, dot? Basically, here, all these restricted numeric and then custom currency, dollar, date, scientific notation, dot, comma, all these are treated as numeric variables. So the main variables are numeric and string variable. A numeric variable is just a variable that is represented by a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are numeric variables, they are just numbers. And then a string variable is a variable that is basically of just letters or symbols. Sometimes a string variable can have numbers, but these numbers, they are not in a meaningful way that you can even use them for calculations. For example, a mobile phone number cannot be treated as numeric. It can be treated as a string variable, because string variables are also in text form. They can be in text form. So a string variable is basically of numbers, is basically of letters and symbols. Sometimes numbers can be there, and it's in text form. But a numeric variable, this is just numbers, just a number. By default, SPSS, when you enter a variable, like here what has just happened, have this variable 1, it has just come out automatically. By default, SPSS will give you a provision of a numeric variable, but you can actually change it if you want. You can actually change it by just clicking. If you want string variable, click that, and then you press OK. Then it has changed to string variables. And then now you have the width. Suppose you are just dealing with string variables. The width shows the number of characters that are in that string variables. Remember, a string variable is basically in text form. It has characters. So the width is the maximum number of characters that are in your variable. By default, it is SPSS will give you 8. But you can actually change this. You can increase it or you can reduce it like that. And then decimals. Decimals is the number of decimal places that you have in the variables that you have. If you want, you can also change this as well. Let me do this. Let me go back to numeric. The reason it's showing 0 there is because I put string. Okay. Yes. So you can actually change this. And then you have the label. Now the label just gives you more detail about the variable that you have. So here it's not like where you are not confined, like when writing the variable name. In the variable name there are some rules that you need to follow. You don't have to write this, you don't have to write this, but in the label you can write anything that you want. For example, say I had my variable was country. I was talking about countries, and then I was talking about the population in that country. I can write population, yes, population space, sorry, population count. Yes, remember in the variable name we said that you do not put spaces, but here you can actually write anything that you want. Here I put a space, population count. So on the label it just gives you more detail about the variable. The label will not show on the data view. On the data view, what you only see is the name of the variable. That's the only thing that you see on the data view, the name of the variable. So when you enter the variable here on the data view, going to reflect. But then the label will show when you do your analysis and then the output comes out. The label will show the population count. And then now you have the values. Now these values are for what are known as categorical variables. If you categorize your variables, for example, if you have the variable gender, when you're talking about gender, you're talking about male or female. So this variable gender is known as a categorical variable because it has two categories. There is male and female. Now, SPSS understands numbers. It will not understand words that this is male, this is female. It will understand numbers. So on the value, you are going to assign numbers to male and female. So for example, you can say female 1 and then male 2. That's how SPSS is going to understand male and female when you assign numbers to them. So on the value, you can assign numbers to the categories of variables that you have. And then now you have missing. This is when now you have maybe you are doing a questionnaire, but then you have some missing answers. You are going to specify here in missing. And then you have the columns. The columns just shows how wide the cells are in the data view. So for example, if I increase the column, let me increase to 14. Let me go to the data view and see what has happened. The column for the variable has increased because I increased on the variable view to 14. But if you want, you can actually bring this back. You can actually bring this back in Excel. You can actually bring this back, and then you go to the variable view. You find that it has gone back to 8. So when you adjust this, then you are just simply adjusting the cells in the data view. And then you have align. This shows how your data is aligned. Is it on the left, right, or center? I like just leaving it like this on the right. And then now you have the measure. The measure, you have scale, ordinal, nominal. This is basically the type of variable again that you have. Is it a scale variable, ordinal variable, or nominal variable? A scale variable, then you're talking about a variable which is a quantity. For example, weight is a quantity. Amount of money, it's a quantity. Distance is a quantity. So when you're talking about distance, that's a scale variable. How long is it from here to there? How much does this weigh? That's weight. That's a scale variable. So scale variables are basically just quantities. And then now you have ordinal variables. Ordinal variables, these are for categorical variables, those variables that you can put in categories. Remember, when we are talking about categorical variables, you assign 1 and 2. Now, when you have categorical variables, there are certain categorical variables that you can rank. You can put one category over the other category. So an ordinal variable is for categorical variables that you can actually put in a rank. For example, if you talk about income level, if you're talking about income level, you can categorize income level. You can put people with an income of say $15,000 on one side, and then you put people with an income of $700 on one side. You have categorized, but then you find that those people with an income of $15,000 have higher income than those who have an income of $700. So you see that there are people with higher income on one side and there are people with lower income on one side. So income level is a categorical variable here because you are ranking. There are people with high income and people with lower income. So income level here is being a categorical variable, and it is an ordinal because you're actually ranking income levels. There are people with high income and people with lower income. And then now you have the nominal variable. A nominal variable is also a categorical variable, but the difference is that for a nominal variable, you cannot rank like what we're doing with income level. Some people have high income and some people have lower income. For a nominal variable, you cannot rank. Remember, we gave an example of gender. Gender is a categorical variable. There is male and female. But you cannot say one gender is a higher gender than the other gender. You cannot say female is more gender than male, or male is more gender than female. You cannot do that. Same applies to, let's say, if you're talking about race. Race is a categorical variable. There are a lot of races, and you cannot say one is more race than the other race. So a nominal variable is a categorical variable that you cannot rank. You cannot rank it. Yeah, you cannot put one category over the other. And then now you have the row. The row is the assignment that you are going to give the specific variable that you have. What are you going to assign to that variable? By default here, you are going to see input. If it's the variable is an input, it means it's going to be a predictor variable. That means that you are going to use that variable to predict the outcome of another variable. Then it's an input variable. This is common in regression analysis. In regression analysis, you have certain variables that are used to predict other variables. So if you have put input, then it means that your variable is going to be used to predict the outcome of something else. But then if you put target, it means that the variable, you are going to assign it a role of being a predicted variable. This time it's not going to be used to predict, but it is the variable that is being predicted. So if your variable, you assign it the role of target, then it is the variable that is going to be predicted, not the variable that is going to predict. If you are familiar with regression analysis, then I can simply say that an input variable is an independent variable, and then a target variable is a dependent variable. And then now, if you have both, then it means that that variable is going to have both rows. It's going to be a predictor variable, and it is also going to be a predicted variable, or it's going to be an independent variable, but at the same time it's going to be a dependent variable. And then now you have none. Here it means that you're not going to assign your variable. You're not going to give it any assignment now. And then partition, then it means that that variable is going to be used to separate two samples that you're studying. And then split, this is basically not for we are using IBM statistics, IBM SPSS statistics, but this is mainly for IBM SPSS modeler, so you do not need to worry much about it. So that's all I wanted to talk about SPSS. In my next video, I'm going to do a calculation of frequencies, and I'm also going to present charts just to give you an understanding of how you can analyze data in SPSS. So thank you very much for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and see you next time.